the statements of the senator from Bath and the senior senator from Chesterfield, but I want to put this in a little bit of a larger context, because this bill can't be looked at in a vacuum. And yes, I have a kindergartner whose pre-K was interrupted on March 13th, right as she was beginning to learn the basics to read. And so she started kindergarten virtually, sitting at a table next to her dad, who gets to see all of the other kids and how they're interacting, and how her teacher is trying to balance teaching kindergarten while supervising her own fifth grader. And I have a fifth grader, and I want them back in school. But the kids aren't the only one in the building that we have to worry about. And teachers aren't the only ones in the building we have to worry about. And I want to put some of this in context. Our ICU beds right now, according to the dashboard, are at 80%. This virus has not gone away. The vaccines won't be rolled out to everyone that's going to be in that school building for a while. The kids may not be affected the same way by the vaccine, but they're spreaders. And in some communities, they're going home and they're in communities with vulnerable individuals. In Charles City County, when one person in the Department of Social Services got COVID, the entire building had to shut down. The entire building had to shut down. In a lot of our localities, the education workforce is older and more at risk. We have bus drivers that need to get these kids to the schools who are older and more at risk in many cases. We have school divisions and classrooms that are at maximum capacity with 30 kids in a room. They can't spread out 10 feet apart like we are here. The school building is overcrowded. So we need to, if we're going to pass this bill, we need to make sure those schools have the flexibility to go somewhere else so they can spread out. Pre-COVID, we had teachers in classrooms asking parents to donate Clorox wipes. Pre-COVID. If we pass this bill, we've got to make sure all of our school divisions have the resources they need to comply with the CDC guidelines, including Clorox wipes in the classroom. We got to make sure when the kids come back in the building, we've got the mental health professionals to address their needs. Because I agree. This is having a huge impact on their mental health. We're not funding the appropriate counselor to student ratio now. Hopefully we'll fix that in this budget. We're not funding the appropriate nurse to student ratio now. Hopefully we'll fix that in this budget. The emergency clause will probably taken off not just to count votes, but how are the schools going to apply immediately upon signing this bill, given the logistics I just mentioned? This is more complicated than the words of this bill can solve. For these reasons and all the reasons that the senior senator Chesterfield said. So let's be clear. We have got to make sure we do our part. We do our part as a Commonwealth to work with our localities to get them back in. But I agree with the senator from Bath, there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach for every school and every school division in this Commonwealth. We better work with them and make sure every single one of them gets what they need. And we better not fool ourselves that the minute all the schools are back in person and a new school year begins, and even when we get herd immunity and the virus goes away, we better not fool ourselves into thinking, like a magic wand, the impacts of this year went away. Because they're going to be with us for a long time. We better think about that as we're looking at how we fund K-12 education and how we fund early childhood and how we fund our education workforce and how we fund the education pipelines for a long time to come, because we aren't going to solve any of those lingering problems with this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.